If you can follow a plan for a few days, sometimes even a full week, only to find yourself falling off again, you're not alone. This pattern is extremely common, and despite what you may believe, it is rarely caused by a lack of discipline, willpower, or knowledge. The uncomfortable truth is that the system you are using is producing exactly the results you are experiencing. Most people who struggle with inconsistency already know what they should be doing. They understand which foods are more nutritious, that regular movement matters, and that consistency is more important than perfection. Yet the cycle continues. This happens because inconsistency is not an information problem. It's a behavioral systems problem. And guess what? Until it is addressed at that level, the pattern will continue regardless of how motivated you feel or how much knowledge you have at the start. Before focusing on the solutions, it is important to understand what is driving inconsistency beneath the surface. Most people begin with a burst of motivation that comes from external sources. This may include a challenge deadline, excitement, social pressure, guilt, or fear of consequences. These motivators are powerful in the short term, which is why the first few days often feels easy. The problem is that extrinsic motivation does not last. When the pressure fades and we ultimately revert to our hedonic set point, the behavior loses its fuel. Identity is what sustains behavior when motivation is low. If you do not genuinely see yourself as someone who prioritizes health, trains consistently, or eats in a balanced way, those behaviors will continue to feel optional. Optional behaviors are the first to disappear when life becomes busy or stressful. An example of this is the New Year's resolution. In fact, it's become a meme at this point for how many times it's been tried and failed. The problem is that we make a statement of what we want to do in the new year, but we never truly internalize it and make it part of our identity, which leads us to the next problem. And that is, your actions conflict with how you see yourself. At a subconscious level, many people hold beliefs such as, I'm just not that consistent, or I always start strong but fall off. When these beliefs are present, every small mistake reinforces them. A missed workout or an unplanned meal does not feel like a minor deviation. Instead, it becomes evidence that confirms the story you already believe about yourself. Rather than calmly adjusting course, you assume the outcome is inevitable. It is not a setback itself that causes you to fall off. It is the meaning you assign to it, which goes hand in hand with our next topic, and that is the way we phrase things ourselves. Many health behaviors exist in a category of shoulds. I should eat better. I should train more often. I should get back on track. The problem with shoulds is that they are easy to negotiate away. Think about it. Non-negotiable behaviors, such as brushing your teeth or showing up for work, do not require motivation or internal debate. You do them because they are part of your standard, not because you feel inspired. The difference between a should and a must is the perceived value of the behavior. When a habit is not deeply tied to something you genuinely care about, it remains optional. And optional habits do not survive friction. And that brings us to the next issue. Many people say they want to lose weight or get healthier, but few take the time to define what that outcome truly represents in their lives. Weight loss by itself is abstract and emotionally weak. It does not inspire confidence or fire us up. What gives it meaning is what it provides. This might include things such as more energy to engage with your children, greater confidence in social situations, improved mental clarity, reduced anxiety, or a stronger sense of control over your life. If your habits are not mentally linked to these deeper values, they will consistently lose to comfort and convenience. By adulthood, most daily behaviors operate on autopilot. Habits, thought patterns, emotional reactions, and coping mechanisms are largely subconscious. This is why deciding to try harder rarely works for long. Trying to override deeply ingrained patterns with willpower alone is exhausting and unsustainable. Meaningful change requires altering the underlying system that drives behavior, not simply applying more effort on top of it. Another problem a lot of people face when it comes to staying consistent, especially those who see themselves as perfectionists or high performers, is all or nothing thinking. A missed workout, an unplanned meal, or stressful period is often interpreted as failure rather than normal human variability. Once that interpretation takes hold, people tend to abandon the plan entirely instead of making a small adjustment. In reality, consistency or doing it perfectly is not defined by never slipping. It is defined by how quickly and calmly you return to that level of being consistent once again. Lasting consistency does not come from hacks or motivational speeches either. It comes from intentional redesigning the system that governs your behavior. Now that we've uncovered all the problems people face when trying to stay consistent, let's take a look at what we can do to overcome those problems. Rather than asking how to stay consistent long term, focus on what a consistent person would do today. This reduces overwhelm and brings attention back to immediate, controllable actions. You do not need to execute perfectly or plan weeks ahead. You simply need to take the smallest action that aligns with the identity you are building. Each repetition reinforces that identity and makes future actions easier. Many people approach health behaviors as a form of delayed gratification. They believe they must suffer now to feel better in the future. This mindset creates resistance and burnout. Instead, focus on how your actions improve how you feel today. Increased energy, reduced guilt, improved mood, and clearer thinking are immediate rewards that encourage repetition. Behaviors that provide short-term benefits are far more likely to stick. Select one or two behaviors that have the greatest impact on your health and well-being. Decide that these actions are no longer optional, but part of who you are. This decision should be based on alignment with your values, not convenience or mood. When behaviors become standards rather than goals, consistency becomes simpler and less emotionally charged. One effective way to strengthen commitment is to deliberately build more mental links between the habit and the values. Writing down 10 to 20, heck, even 30 reasons why a behavior matters can significantly increase its perceived importance. The more connections your brain has, the harder it becomes to dismiss the habit as unimportant or optional. When things do not go according to plan, avoid the urge to punish yourself or overreact with extreme restriction. These responses often fuel the cycle you are trying to escape. Instead, ask a simple question. What is the next correct action? This keeps your focus on progress rather than judgment and prevents small deviations from turning into full resets. Consistency is rarely achieved in isolation. Environment, structure, and accountability matter far more than raw willpower. Whether support comes from a coach, a tracking system, or external accountability, it should be viewed as a strategic advantage rather than a weakness. If you repeatedly find yourself starting and stopping, the issue is not that you are incapable of consistency. It is that your current system is producing the outcome by default. When the system changes, behavior changes with it. Consistency stops feeling forced or exhausting and starts to feel like a natural extension of who you are. If this video resonates with you, the next step is not to try harder. The next step is to adopt a better structure. You can try Better Balance Coaching with a 14-day free trial, which allows you to experience a system designed for real life rather than perfection. If you sign up, you will also receive the Nutrition Shortcut Bundle, a collection of 12 science-backed booklets that you can download and keep. These guides are designed to show you how to set up nutrition around your goals, adapt when life becomes busy, and stop repeating the cycle of starting over. Build a system once and allow consistency to follow naturally.